What's up, guys? I'm BTC. While we're waiting for hero number 31, there's no shortage of ideas, so today I'm gonna go over several of the fan concepts that you guys have sent to me. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, and if you're new, subscribe and hit that bell to get more. Let's get started. I've been making hero concepts for quite a while now, and ever since I first started, people had been asking, hey, can I send you some of my ideas, or can, I run this idea by you and all that sort of stuff. So over on my Discord server, I set up a bunch of channels where people can discuss hero concepts, ability ideas, all that sort of stuff, and it's a fairly active part of the Discord server. If you want to check that out, there's a link down below. I also set up an email so you could send me your finished hero concepts, and then I could put them in a big compilation video like this. But I ran into a problem. First of all, there was a lot. I had over 250 emails, and that's just I can't possibly put all of that in one video. The other thing was I was having a hard time trying to figure out how to actually make this video. First, I thought I could pick one that I really liked and then make it into a full video, but there are just too many. Then I thought maybe I could have some kind of a review system, but I didn't particularly like that. What I ended up going with is kind of an in-between of all that. So I'm gonna show you a bunch of the design that they have and kind of talk a little bit about each character, and then just kind of show them off, because a lot of these were put together. They spent a lot of time, a lot of hard work making them, but they probably didn't get a lot of attention. They could post them at different places, but I just thought it would be neat to kind of share them with everybody. And I really want to emphasize something. This isn't a top 5 list or the best that have been sent to me, because there are other really good ones that are not included in this video, and if you guys end up liking it and if this video gets enough views and stuff, then I'll continue making the series and I'll show off a bunch of other ones. So again, if you like the video, make sure you hit that like and share it and all that good stuff. So without any further delay, let's go into it. This first hero concept shares a striking resemblance to one of my own hero concepts, which is Dergby, but because this is the very first hero concept that anyone sent me, the very first email, I decided to include it. So the character is Haywire. It was made by, there's a whole bunch of words mashed together. I think it's Theo the Lone Wolf is the name of the person that made it. So Haywire, and it is a support. The primary attack is the Slime Pumper. It's basically like a fire hose with slime in it. And as I said, it's kind of similar to Dergby. It's got that kind of ooze stuff that he uses. And it's a long-range splash projectile weapon that heals and does damage. So it seems like it's kind of similar to what Baptiste has, except it does both at the same time. The ability is the Heal Engine, which is an AoE healing effect near the player. The second ability is Deployable Healer. It's an ability, you kind of toss out this little device, and it will heal all of the players in that general vicinity. And then the ultimate is Going Haywire, and it's a rapid-fire projectile that heals teammates and damages enemies in front of you. So you can see it is a 2-star difficulty. The health is a bit high, 250. That's quite a bit. And also even has the ult icon in there. So there you go. First one ever sent to me, Haywire by Theo the Lone Wolf. And by the way, guys, I don't expect everyone to be amazing artists. As long as you can show a general idea of who the character is and what's going on, that's good enough. So the next one is named Skol, and this was created by someone named GD Gecko, and this is a support hero. And Skol is a mutant mantis shrimp from the Indian Ocean, irradiated by the Outback's nuclear fallout. And I didn't have to put any of the stuff on the left because this person actually made all of the different abilities, and it shows like little animations and stuff and diagrams of how it all works. So the primary attack is the Cannon Plate, close range, high damage projectile weapon. You can see that right there with the little image. The passive ability is Bottom Crawler. When you're out of battle long enough, you can change to quadruped-like stance with increased speed and wall climbing, and it ends once you attack. The first ability is Calm Reef. Shoots down a tiny piece of coral which heals and has 3 stages, which it obtains the longer it's down. So it seems to heal out a larger area the longer that the coral is on the ground. And ability 2, it strikes enemies in the front, and if it doesn't hit, it creates a small bubble that stuns on impact. So this is very much like what some of the shrimp can actually do. In case you didn't know, they're actually capable of creating these little mini shockwaves that are actually very powerful. You'd be surprised. And then the ultimate is the Tsunami Dash, charges up at a fast speed and charges across a high distance. All enemies hit are pinned and take damage per second while pinned. So that is Skol the Mutant Shrimp. The next character is a little more complicated. This is a tank named Minnie Embiggenstein. It was created by Mr. Chagris, and as we all know, of course, a noble spirit embiggens the smallest man. And this character has an interesting concept where the character will shrink and grow, and depending on what size the character is, will determine what kind of primary attack and how good the defensive aspect of the character is. So we'll start with the average size. The primary attack, it shoots small projectiles at 5 rounds per second, and then when you grow larger, those projectiles get bigger, and it's now a cannonball projectile that can pass through targets with no drop-off. Now, I would assume that it would have to be a slower projectile in order to kind of compensate for this. And then in the miniature, the smallest version of the character, it changes from projectile to a hit scan. Now, the secondary function of this character in all forms is a barrier, and you hold up a circular barrier that will be, the size of it is determined by how big the character is. And then you have the ability 1, which will decrease your size, so it will decrease your current health by half and raise your current speed double. And then ability 2 is an increase of your current size, and it will basically reverse it. It increases your health and will slow down your speed. The ultimate is the size mine. It will lob an object that explodes in a medium radius. Any enemies caught in the radius become shrunken, which doubles incoming damage and halves any player damage output. So it's a massive debuff, effectively. And then there's a passive on the character where Minnie starts out at 300 max hit points, and in average state has a slightly faster walk speed than a normal player. And the hitbox is about the Doomfist size. She has 2 other stages which you can go to, which are the Enlarge, which increases the hitbox to around where Roadhog is and also gets that double hit points up to 600. And then you also get halved down to 150 when you go into the mini shrunken phase, and the barrier's health does not regenerate normally. Instead, the barrier's hit points gets rescaled to the next size she goes to at full health. So the barriers will also have different amounts of health depending on what size it is. So again, that is a little bit more of a complicated character, but I think a perfectly cromulent hero concept. The next one is a DPS named Paul, and he is a green blob. And this was made by the Pixel Tank King. I think Paul actually does have some backstory. Most of the characters actually do have some story to go along with it, but I'm trying to keep this video under an hour long, so I had to cut out a bunch of stuff. I think the story behind Paul is that he was a normal person and there was a lab accident and it turned him into a green blob. So he's got a bunch of different things. He's got the Torbjorn height and width for the dimensions of the character, and I'm going to go through a bunch of his things. So the first thing I want to show you is the passive, which is the acid ball. He can't jump. Paul cannot jump. He's just a blob, and when you're running into a wall or a ceiling, you stick to it. So kind of like the mantis shrimp. There seems to be a theme with that. And you can move and use all of your abilities, and if you press the jump button while you're stuck to a wall or a ceiling, then you kind of detach and you fall to the ground. His primary attack is called Acid. It has the same gravity and shape as the Molten Core Lava. It's essentially a glob, kind of like of acidic slime, and when it hits the ground, if anybody walks into it, then they take the damage. The next ability is the Slimy Splash. It's a dash that doesn't deal any damage right away, but he will flatten and he'll land on top of people, and it deals damage over time. The next ability is the Sticky, which damages and slows enemies, and it has a high rate of attack. And he says that it, will cover the legs of the opponent, so you can kind of see a visual indicator of them being affected. Basically, you just hit them with it, and it kind of slows them down. And then his ultimate is called Suffocate, and Paul just becomes a gigantic blob covering up an area, and any of the enemies that are inside of it get trapped. So did you ever see the movie, The Blob? That's basically what Paul does. Paul becomes that, and the enemies get stuck inside of that area, and they just kind of like float around inside there. They can't move or use any attacks. It's kind of interesting because on the one hand, you are taking out a couple of enemies, but you also sacrifice your own ability to move and to do stuff, so you kind of lock yourself in place at the same time. So that is Paul the Green Blob, and it was made by Pixel Tank King. Next up is a support character named Lance, and this was made by someone named Jago Jocks, and this is kind of like a mix of Ash and Bob and Bastion, all kind of blended together. And what I mean by that is there's different transformation modes, and there's also 2 separate characters. The first mode is dismounted. The primary attack is Plasma Blaster. You press the button to start charging up a piercing plasma bolt, and then you press it again to release it. And then your first ability is called Priority Target. And what it does is it targets an ally in your line of sight, and you have the horse, which is named Ignatius. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And that will bring the next health pack. So essentially what the horse does is it goes out and it grabs health packs, and it brings them to you and to your teammates. And that's kind of how the support aspect of the character works. And then you have another ability called Atonement, and this will target a dead enemy, and it creates a healing field around the enemy. Now, I would assume that this would have to be fairly powerful because it's such a limited kind of use. Like, you can only use it in a certain area and after the enemy has been killed. So, again, probably a very powerful healing. And then you also have another ability called Call Ignatius, and you summon the horse and mount him, increasing your speed and changing your primary attack. And the passive for this is, while you're dismounted, the horse will seek out the nearest available health pack, and it will give it to your priority target, so whoever you were targeting earlier. Once you call the horse, you have a second mode, which is called Mounted. Your primary weapon changes. It's no longer a long-range attack. Instead, you get a spear, and your attack is swiping the lance in a large arc in front of you. You still have the ability to put the priority target on your teammates, but the horse isn't going to actually go and get the health pack, I don't think, because you're riding it. So it's just changing that around, so you can still have that. Because when you dismount, which is another ability, then you can have the horse go and get those health packs and stuff. Now, you have a new passive when you're on the horse called Mounted Charge, and while you're running, as long as you're moving in a relatively forward direction, then you start to move faster and faster, and you're going to hit a certain threshold where you kind of activate this hidden attack, and you'll be able to deal damage and knock back the first enemy you hit. So think of it kind of like what Hammond has with his high speed, right? When he breaks that certain speed threshold, then he can start dealing damage. And then in both modes, you have something called the Cavalry Call, which will call in 5 more cavalry units that will gather up health packs at slightly reduced speed from the normal horse that you have, Ignatius. And then your allies can also mount these horses, and they will move faster and still be able to use all of their abilities except for certain specific movement abilities. So, for example, if Soldier 76 was on the horse, you could still use the Helix Rocket, but you're not going to be able to sprint, basically, is what's going to happen. And that's Lance, made by Jago Jocks. So that is all the hero concepts that I have for this video, but I still have a ton more emails that I can go through and make other videos if that's something that you guys like to see. Again, you know, the character concepts may not be the most balanced thing, and the artwork isn't going to be most amazing, but, you know, people spend a lot of time on these, and some of them are pretty neat, and I thought I would like to share. So if this is something that you want to see more of, then let me know. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.